Hello and welcome to the Wayfairy YouTube channel. So I've been meaning to make this channel for a while now, and I was going to put it off until spring. It's currently December. I was going to put it off until spring because I'm currently an ordained Buddhist monk, and I don't want this channel to be exclusively about Buddhism. It's not going to be a channel exclusively about Buddhism. Definitely going to be Buddhist influenced. It's going to be a channel about wisdom, spirituality, spiritual practices, these sorts of things, but it's not exclusively Buddhist. However, come spring, I'm going to go wandering again. I'm going to return back to England. I will leave the training from this tradition, and I'll return to England and Britain and the United Kingdom to take up the role as a wandering wilderness ascetic. Again, this is something I've done before. I did it last summer to great success as well. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But come winter last year, I found myself at a retreat centre, staying there for winter as it was too cold to stay outside. And then I had the opportunity to come to Thailand to further my training, to take full ordination, and to further training and deepen my capacities, my understanding, and all these sorts of things. So first of all, why did I choose Buddhism? Why am I a Buddhist monk? That might be a good place to start. So for me, in my spiritual search, my spiritual yearning, I was reading lots of writers, predominantly Julius Evola. He was a massive influence on me. If you're watching this, you're probably familiar with Evola. And he wrote a book called The Doctrine of Awakening, which was his interpretation, not necessarily just interpretation, but his account and interpretation, we should say, of the earliest Buddhist texts and the teachings of the Buddha. I don't want to say Buddhism. Buddhism is a word that was made by Westerners in, I think, the 18th or 19th century, like every other ism, to just stick a label on an ideology or a way of being or a way of thinking. But when I talk about Buddhism, I'll talk about it as what the Buddha taught, getting back to what the Buddha taught, and that is the practice of awakening, the doctrine of awakening. And this word practice is key for me. My background is in sort of sport, and I was a personal trainer and a strength and conditioning coach. So I view the world, my lens of the world is through practice, methodology. And the Buddhist method, or what the doctrine of awakening, the practice of awakening, is a methodology. It's a training program, essentially. What for? Well, it's a training program for, first of all, understanding and mastery of the mind. So self-mastery, mastery of the mind, which evolves, if we take it all the way, to full liberation, full awakening, supreme awakening, full transcendent awakening. And when I was reading this book by Evola, The Doctrine of Awakening, it just grabbed me as a method, a doctrine, everything about it, just the language, the metaphors, the allegories that were used in the earliest Buddhist texts, just spoke to me. I think the link there as well is the sort of Indo-European link, that Indo-Aryan link. It's inherently Indo-Aryan, Indo-European, which I think is why it speaks so much to me and resonates with me. So when I read this book, there was no going back for me, really. I knew that was the path I wanted to practice. I did have a very strong pull towards sort of pagan impulses, we could say, like a very strong folk spirit. I love my people, I love Britain, I love England. I'm half English, half Scottish, Irish surname, grew up on a small island, so the entire British Isles and Ireland I consider home. I am British. I know that's got a bad connotation to it these days, but I can't say I'm English, can't say I'm Scottish. I am British. I am of the Isles. So I had this pagan impulse, this kind of Celtic impulse of just wanting like a rich Celtic spirituality to sink my teeth into. And my main drive was just to get to the wilderness, get out into the forest. Now, I didn't have the skills or the attributes or the wisdom to really just go off and live in the forest on my own. Not as a spiritual seeker, anyway. I probably could have done it just as a bum living in the wilderness, but I didn't have the tools. So I knew as a coach, as a personal trainer, and that background, I knew I needed to take up the training under somebody for a while. So I chose the Thai forest tradition, namely because they are adherents to the earliest Buddhist texts, which I was getting to grips with, and they are still a wilderness ascetic lineage. They are probably one of the only traditions and lineages in the world which actually practice in the forest as their mode of practice. So I knew I wanted to train with them and learn from them. However, last summer I left the training for a while and I went off and I did some wandering in Britain, kind of on my own, with my foundations in what I was learning from Buddhism, and it was fantastic, really, really good. And what I envision, my kind of vision I have in mind, is actually a rekindling and a re-emergence of a wandering culture, a wandering ascetic culture. So I think this is going to be, or could be, no, I know it could be actually, a novel and underappreciated solution to some of the problems we're facing in the West. And not only that, I think it could be a very vital solution, with like packed with potential, more so than perhaps anything else. And I don't think it's any secret that probably lots of the problems we're facing and all of the degeneracy and the ills of society at large are downstream from a loss of transcendent principles, a loss of higher ideals, a loss of spiritual orientation, wise leadership, wise authority, and having that handed down through the generations. So it makes sense to me that the solution we absolutely should be looking at for these ills we see are a re-emergence of these transcendent principles in a real nobility, a nobility of the spirit, the spiritual elite, who are going to be the next leaders and the next spiritual leaders, and therefore ultimately the leaders of everyone, if not directly but secondary through that. And I can't see this re-emergence happening in the established institutions that are already around. I won't say much about Christianity now. I'll wait till I'm disrobed for that, so I can't cause any trouble. But even in the Christian world, if you're Christian and watching this, I can't imagine you're going to work your way up through the congregation to a leadership role anytime soon and somehow transform the church or whatever denomination you're part of. However, the emergence of a wandering culture, and a wandering ascetic culture, a grassroots, from the ground up emergence and rekindling and resurfacing, I think could shock everyone to the core, can shock the spiritual world to the core and the institutions to the core. I am thinking predominantly with Britain in mind, maybe further afield in the English-speaking countries in Europe, but I think Britain and Ireland could be the most fertile ground for this to germinate. And we have a strong monastic culture in Britain and Ireland, very strong, and a strong pilgrimage culture and a strong wandering culture. It just died out with sort of like the Reformation of the church by Henry VIII and the dissolvement of the monasteries and stuff. I think that was the real like nail in the coffin of real spiritual life. Not real spiritual life, but somewhat of a real spiritual thread in Britain anyway. So yeah, the wandering culture is a novel and vital solution to some of the problems. I won't go too much about it in this video, but this is what we can expect. This is what I aim to go back and do again, and it's something I would like to try and inspire in others. So why do I think this could be, no I will, I'll unpack it some more now. Why do I think this could be novel and a vital solution? First and foremost, I think it's a very wholesome way of going rogue. It's a very wholesome rebellion. We're kind of caught in this dialectic tension of just keep waiting for something to happen, waiting for change, or the other part of this dialectic tension seems to be some sort of like, let's say, kinetic action, which might not be of the wholesome variety. And I understand people are stuck in the middle because we can't do this, and if somebody opts to do this kinetic solution, let's say, then who knows, there's no going back from that per se, or you do it too early and then blown your load too early, you know, and it's a waste, and ultimately it's not wholesome. I don't deny maybe some of this has to take place, But for men of the spirit, the spiritual nobility I'm talking about, leave this to the people. Leave that to others. That's their job. Our job as a future spiritual nobility, future leaders, is to hold that line, which includes morality and ethics. I'm not saying tail between the legs defeatism here, life denying, suicidal empathy and compassion and whatnot. What I'm saying is let's develop wisdom first. So, a wholesome way of going rogue, a wholesome way of rebelling. And what else does this offer? It offers freedom, okay? And there's a couple of things I want to talk about with freedom. It's kind of like a meaty word. But there's these two levels. I'll simplify it for this chapter. There's these two levels when I think of this. We have freedom from and freedom to. So freedom from things, freedom from poisonous institutions and social realms, freedom from bonds and shackles, and freedom from slavery. And then when you're free from everything, then we have the freedom to do what one needs to do, the freedom to pursue what the heart desires in an authentic way, not in a hedonistic way, but in, again, spiritual nobility here. The freedom to take the action that needs to be taken with wise discernment, not reactivity, but wise choice, wise action. So what I am saying here is I'm not offering, let's talk about what I'm not offering first. I'm not offering like a new identity or a new belief system or a new religion or anything like this. Okay, I was going to say I'm not offering a new group or a new place of belonging, but I am offering that. I absolutely am offering community and a new group to be a part of. But I'm adamant in saying it's not a belief system. It's not dogma or doctrine. Okay, the dogma is no dogma, and the doctrine is no doctrine. To a degree, I'll expand on this stuff later. There will need to be some precepts and guidelines and boundaries in place. But this freedom from element. So I want to show young men or women or everyone that one can live with no money. One can live homeless, penniless, homeless, even begging for one's food. And I'll talk about how this can be a real vital and heroic, noble thing to do at a later date. I know it doesn't sound like it straight off the bat. But homeless, penniless, few possessions, living in the wilderness, but with a vitality and an energy and a pureness which makes this easy. Not only easy, fun, enjoyable, just indescribably joyous on days. And the way we'll get to that is on this freedom from element. So we need to be able to get free from the bonds and the shackles and the things that are killing us and enslaving us and poisoning us. Free from the tyrannical financial system. Free from debt slavery and wage slavery and all of these sorts of things. Free from the poisons of the social realm right now. Free from these mind viruses that are everywhere. Free from these false dichotomies that we get drawn into and these things that we get drawn into where we have to react, or they destabilize us and cause this kind of neurotic agitation that we tend to have in the social realm. So I'm offering a solution to get free from everything. And in the freedom from everything, it is there where this vital potential lies. Okay, we're free from everything that hinders us. We're free from everything that kills the spirit, that dulls the flame, that shackles, enslaves, ensnares. And in getting free from everything, there is this abundant potential vitality. And now what somebody chooses to do with that once they have it is not my call. Okay, I don't want to interfere with anybody's spiritual life. I want to just help people cut away at what's ensnaring them and get them to this point of vitality. And it's at this point where enough of us, if we do this as a collective, it's here where the fertile potential is for whatever we choose to do next, in all domains and all capacities. It has to start here with the spiritual nobility and the spiritual elite and the future leaders, and then it can overflow and overflow out into the communities and the wider collective. So this wandering culture, just to touch on this last part, getting free from everything, this is not for one group of people, one type of person. I think it's for one possible type of character that will really commit to it. But, you know, whether pagans, Christians, Buddhists, even if you're like a, you know, a materialist, like the most ardent Extinction Rebellion anti-capitalist materialist, cool. Put your money where your mouth is. Come and join us in the forest. You know, shun all of this stuff. Come out and join us. And I like this idea. You know, we talk about the marketplace of ideas, but I like this idea of like the arena of philosophies, or the dojo of spiritual metaphysics. And let's test ourselves in nature, initiated into the mysteries of nature, is what I like to say. With guiding principles, I'll unpack some of this stuff later, you know, but I think I envision this kind of rising tides lifts all ships kind of thing. So if we get out there and inspire all of the young men to have a real strong spiritual impulse, no matter what domain they found themselves in, because we're all looking, okay, I'll talk about this in a second, but if we get out there and inspire everyone, then we kind of see whose, as I said, whose spiritual practice stands at the end, who's got the best method, you know, who's got the vitality, the energy, the health, the wisdom, and who is embodying it the best, who's living their practice, and who's inspiring. Who do people look at and go, that's who I want to learn from, that's the way I want to live, that's the method I want to do, this guy's walking the walk. And that's the key. So if we get out there and do this, you know, if the pagans get out there and do it, and the Christians get out there and do it, and anyone who leans Buddhist gets out there and do it, you know, whatever these labels mean ultimately, but you know, we probably have our main practice amongst whatever else it is we're trying to do, but we can lift everyone. Okay. So the dogma is no dogma. The doctrine is no doctrine. It's that, as I said, there will be guiding principles, and there will be certain things one should probably agree on if they want to join this movement as a collective. But if it inspires others to do their own, great. There's so much potential here. So, just finishing with this quote then. Theologians of the world may quarrel, but the mystics all speak the same language. And that's what I want to get at. Okay, so let's get back to the mystical, the metaphysics. Okay, religion separates, metaphysics unites, and we can bring together everything that we're learning. So a wandering resurgence, a rekindling of the wandering impulse, the pilgrim, the wayfarer, for an adventurous, fun, heroic, noble, and wholesome, healthy, regenerative way of going rogue and rebelling, taking our energy away from everything that kills us and poisons us and is ruining our society, to create the fertile ground for something new. Okay, not a renunciation of the world or a withdrawal from the social realm, head off into the forest instead of taking up our duties and doing things. It's head off into the forest until that duty and that impulse is ready to be acted on with wisdom, vitality, and all of these good, healthy things, where you can discern, actually, this is what I need to be doing. You know, it could be 2-3 years of practice, and then you re-enter and start a family or get into politics or whatever it is you want to do. Okay, so hopefully you can see where my vision is and where this could possibly lead. And I've no doubt some of you will be on board with this, and I hope to see some of you plodding along barefoot on the ground soon, and joining me, perhaps wandering. So I'll leave it there. That's the introduction. Stay tuned. I'll hopefully put some more insights up, some physical practices, some spiritual insights, these sorts of things, some comparative stuff. I'll keep it broad. As I said, this isn't going to be a Buddhist channel. And yeah, stay well, stay lucky, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.